Welcome to today's episode of Chasing Squirrels. This episode, we speak with Mitchel Bonds, the People Operations Manager from AnswerRocket, a startup in Atlanta, Georgia. Their product takes plain English questions from a data analyst and shoots out beautiful charts and graphs for them to be able to interpret data in real time. It was great speaking with Mitchel, as he definitely gets it when it comes to hiring top-notch software engineers and candidates. We'll definitely get that sense from reading the job posts and encouraging people who don't have 100% of these requirements to apply, as long as they're passionate about the product and the mission that AnswerRocket is trying to accomplish, all the way down to the no-nonsense interview process. I'm excited to share this opportunity with everyone. Head over to answerrocket.com/join us. Join us being JOIN-US to apply for this position. And with that, let's jump into our chat with Mitchel.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Mitchel Bonds. I am the People Operations Manager for a data analytics startup here in Atlanta called AnswerRocket. AnswerRocket was founded back in 2013 with the premise of, how do we streamline and help our customers be able to ask questions and gain insights from their data using natural language processing.
It looks like you've been there three plus years. So can you kind of give me some insight into what it was like when you went there? And I see you have a lot of positions open. Some are software, some look like they're in design. And so kind of like your guys' growth trajectory and kind of speak to that a little bit, because it looks like you guys are self-funded, which is also unique, and that you guys are growing pretty quickly, even though we're kind of find ourselves in tough economic times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the key differentiators between us and other startups out there. And I actually wasn't, aware of this going into this role, because this is my first venture really into the startup world. But we are self-funded through our CEO, and so that offers a lot of stability for us and focused and strategic growth. So instead of, having to ask investors or having to adhere to, their vision and direction, we're able to really, as an internal team, set those strategies and direction, for us as a company. And so we're targeted, in a few different industries and spaces, and that has really evolved, since COVID happened. And so we are, targeted. We have a targeted focus really in the retail sector, as well as the consumer packaged goods area. And so we're looking to expand in those both industries. And so I was hired about 3 years ago to help internalize a lot of their recruiting efforts, help them scale and grow. At the time that I was hired, we had about 15 employees. To now we have a little bit over 50. So we've definitely expanded a lot over the last handful of years, and we're looking to really continue that growth as we focus our expansion into the consumer goods and retail sectors.
If you had to describe what your company does in a single tweet, how would you describe it?
Yeah, to put it simply, we help our customers find meaning in a universe of data.
Can you give a use case of how your customers or who the end user of the product itself would be?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working right now with a lot of large consumer packaged goods companies. And in particular, we have one client that really requires constant refreshed access to data on a daily or hourly basis for a lot of their brand and marketing managers. And so, for instance, they're looking at a lot of performance type of data. And so we're working, right now with their team on, how's the performance of their various brands? How are they performing? What is impacting those brands? What can they find from their data that would be relevant? And how do we best position them to make the best decisions, business decisions, in regards to that data. And so we're working right now with that team, and they ask a lot of questions about how are my sales doing? What's the impact with due to the current environment on the brand and so forth. So it can the software is intuitive enough that it can answer not only the what questions but also the why questions in in the data set. And so that's kind of the business use case right now that's most popular, is working with a lot of those consumer goods companies on brand performance.
So I've actually watched the demo on your site before we chatted, and I think it's the coolest part is you're just typing in a text, which is your actual question that you have of the data. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So like you would say, what were the sales like in October? And it's going to go in and pull the data from your data set and display that to you in a user-friendly format, basically, if
Yeah,
you're the data analyst, right?
yeah, absolutely. And so we've tried to.
So that's kind of crazy. That was kind of crazy just to watch. I was like, so yeah, I kind of want you to dive a little bit into that user experience, because that kind of like blew my mind in terms of the fact that you could type in plain English and then it shoots out the data analytics for the end user.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be one of the key differentiators in our product versus other products out there in the data analytics enterprise software space, is that we're really heavy on natural language processing and how do we simplify analysis to the end user. And we want to make our software useful for not only technical folks, but also the non-technical business users who want to go in and ask constant, questions about their data. They want to drill down into their data and find anomalies and really be able to ask questions in real time, but also with simplicity. And so we have really created the software from the beginning, with that in mind. And so instead of having to really learn how does a database how can I ask a database a question and get the right response? We wanted to mitigate that and say, how would you ask an analyst, a human analyst, about that data set? And so that's really what we're at the forefront of in our software, and what makes it so intuitive is the natural language focus to where you can simply log into the software, ask a question in a very natural way, sort of how you would just ask, a human analyst a question. And then from there, it'll bring back the different results.
Yeah, it was nice because I'm very familiar with the data process. And so you're basically removing the technical overhead of the team to need to know SQL to get any useful information. So they don't have to reach out to their dev team every time they need data from the database, or they don't have to learn SQL on their own necessarily. They can just have direct access to the data without kind of skipping that, expensive team member and bottleneck, if you will, to get access to the customers as quickly as possible, is what it seemed like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the biggest, business use case, business problem that we're really trying to solve, especially at the enterprise level, where adoption of a lot of the data analysis tools that the company are using are fairly low in that regard, because non-technical business users are unable to really get access to their data in real time and be able to ask those important questions.
100%. Okay, so I want to transition specifically into this job post for the software engineer. So one thing I thought that was interesting about the kind of an overlap between the company and the job post itself was that your guys' CEO was a former CTO, which I think is pretty unique as far as CEOs go. And so I have to imagine that bodes well for the engineering culture, especially at your company. So I'm curious how you think that has kind of affected the culture and the product development of the company itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just as the position description outlines, developers really are at the heart of our team. 3 of the 4 co-founders are engineers themselves, and the 4th one also has a computer science background and degree. So we're really focused on the engineering side.
According to the job rec itself, it looks like it'll be React, Python, and Java is kind of your guys' technical stack. So is there a specific one of those? I know Python can be associated with data science a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of that with your natural language processing. Is this one where they'll kind of touch all those technologies because everybody's really scrappy because it's a startup? Or is there one in particular that would be helpful to be an expert in over another? Or do you have any general thoughts on that?
Yeah. So what's really fun about being able to recruit for a startup that's growing is that the different talents and the different skill sets that we're able to really hire for is pretty diverse. I would say the majority of our engineers right now are lean heavily full stack, so they're able to code both on front end and back end and in various areas of the product, which helps them be able to wear multiple hats. But really, I've sat down with the leadership team on multiple occasions and have asked, do we want to hire a developer that's focused maybe only on JavaScript or maybe only on Python, and really what they told me was we want to hire smart people. And we want to have smart people working on our product. So there's a lot of flexibility there with the skill sets, that we, are able to recruit for. But in terms of our product and what the developers are working, with every day, front end of the product is a mix between TypeScript and JavaScript.
Okay.
And the back end of the product and a lot of the natural language processing is coded in Java and in Python.
Okay. All right, cool. And so what's kind of the general structure of the teams that this person would be entering into? Are they reporting directly to the VP of engineering, or like roughly how many engineers do you have, and kind of how would that flow go for this person?
Yeah, so we're a 50-person company at this point. And have a team of, I'd say about 10 to 12 software developers.
Okay.
And it's a pretty flat organization still. So, all of the developers, they report into one of our co-founders, and he's our chief technology officer.
Awesome. And what would you say the breakdown of the junior, intermediate, senior developer is of the current team?
Yeah, so it's a pretty healthy mix. I would say, probably 30 to 40% are maybe, less than 5 years out of school. And then, the remaining, 50 to 60% are, mid-level to senior level developers. We have some that are, fresh out of school. And then we have, several that have 20, 30 plus years of software development experience.
Okay. And then, so I know this is kind of we're in weird times with the remote work and the COVID issue. So is the dev team currently working remote, and would they work remote forever moving forward? Are you hoping you guys to come back into the office at some point, or what's kind of the overall thoughts of what this position would be from a remote perspective, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So we've been in the past, we've been previously more on-site work than not. We've always been, an employer that has been flexible with, the opportunity and ability to work from home or work remotely as needed. But there was always more, hands on site than not. But I think COVID has really changed that and the way that we operate as a business. I imagine going forward that we're going to offer even more flexibility for these future, roles and positions. And I've already gotten some guidance, from the leadership team that, going forward, if an employee or a candidate that we want to really make an offer to, chooses to work fully remote, that would be acceptable and okay with
Great.
us. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there.
Awesome. So from a training and opportunity for professional growth standpoint, do you have any examples within the dev team or the company itself where you guys enforce that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think working for a growing, smaller startup, it's a flatter organization. So a lot of the projects that you are working on as a developer, you're going to be collaborating with decision makers and with co-founders, including our CEO, as it was alluded to earlier. He is a former CTO and engineer, and so he developer himself. So I think from a mentorship aspect, I think it gives a lot of opportunity to collaborate with a lot of tech entrepreneurs who were successful. previously. And so there's a lot of development there. And then, working on a smaller team, you're afforded really the opportunity to drive different projects, take ownership, from start to finish. And so, versus working on a larger team where maybe you're only, focused on a particular area of the product or, a particular part of a project. Working for a small startup, you'll be stretched in terms of your professional abilities and personal abilities, and be really stretched as well, with the different technologies and exposure that you'll get.
As candidates apply to AnswerRocket, what is the interview process going to look like for a candidate for this position?
Yeah, so candidates can go to our website, submit an application, and each application is reviewed by a human recruiter. Then if they decide to move them forward, they will reach out. We'll schedule sort of a 30-minute, just sort of an intro call to get to know the candidate a little bit further, as well as speak to a little bit more detail about the role and position.
Sure. Are they going to be asked technical questions, or is that more of kind of a get to know you call?
It's more of a get to know you call.
Okay. And then after the phone call, everybody wants to move forward, and then what happens?
Then they will get sent a remote assessment that the candidate will take on their own whenever they, have that free time to do so. That gets graded by a member of our engineering team. And then previously, before COVID, we would bring them on site and have the full process done all at once within a matter of a couple of hours. And then, be in a place to make an offer afterwards if we felt, a good connection there. Now that everything's virtual, all of those, meetings, if there's a whiteboard, exercise involved or, meeting with various members of the engineering team, that's all handled virtually.
Okay. So from first phone call to getting an offer in an perfect case scenario, we're only talking about a week or so, or what does that time frame look like?
I tell candidates, I go as fast as you're comfortable going. We've actually had candidates apply and go through our process, and we can have an offer to them in 48 hours. And then we've had others that, want to spread it over several months. So it depends on the comfortability of the candidate.
That's amazing. That's awesome. What do AnswerRocket's benefits and perks look like, and what are some things that you think are unique that you guys offer? Anything you'd like to add that's kind of out of the ordinary as well?
Yeah, I'd say we, of course, offer health insurance. It's through a national carrier. We have generous PTO. We offer, dental insurance, vision, 401k, and, paid parental leave for both mothers and fathers. And so we have a lot of the traditional benefits that most employers have. And in addition to that, you'll see, some of the benefits and perks that go along with, other startups out there. We have, of course, free lunches, happy hours, coffee, snacks that are on site. We have open workspaces. It's pretty high collaborative sort of an environment. It's open and a lot of flex scheduling and work from home, type of opportunities. I'd say really the difference that we could bring, versus other companies out there is really going to be the day-to-day aspect of the role and the position. You have the chance of working with a very experienced team of the CEO and two or three of the other co-founders on the engineering side, be able to really take ownership of the project, stretch your technical skills, to the max. And so I think that's a lot of the perks and benefits that go, just beyond the traditional, benefits of health insurance.
Okay. And I see that you guys do team outings, company events. Do you have an example, one or two of the good examples of when you guys went out back when the real world was normal?
Yeah. And definitely hoping to continue that, especially when we get back to normal, hopefully. But yeah, we've done events here in Atlanta. We've done Top Golf was a huge hit. I'd say with the developers, we did a specific event with an escape room, and so that was
nice.
We did that as an entire company, and then we've done other events such as Braves games and other things. And then we most recently, actually, right before COVID, back in January, we did an event where we rented out an arcade, an adult arcade, and so we had drinks and food catered. And the entire company just spent several hours that evening playing games together.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And definitely to your listeners, if they're interested in learning a little bit more about AnswerRocket, I would encourage them to go to answerrocket.com/join us.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Chasing Squirrels. We bring job posts to life and connect quality developers with quality companies. Subscribe to this podcast, as we'll be bringing 3 to 5 episodes a week for quality developers, and all those opportunities we'll be hiring right now. So if you know any developers looking for their next opportunity, we'd love for you to share this with them. This podcast is brought to you by goldensquirrel.io. We want to fix hiring for software engineers by adding transparency and insights to amazing companies. We'll be launching our product in 2021, so for more information, you can head to goldensquirrel.io today. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you again tomorrow.